What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the MME YouTube channel. My name is Tyler Egan, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing why manifestation is taking so long, and we're going to be discussing collapsing the manifestation window. There's a lot to talk about with this topic, so let's dive right into this. And I'm going to start this by saying what's blocking the manifestation process is psychological blocks. So I'm going to use that as the umbrella term, but we're going to dive deeper into the mental side of the psychological blocks. So in other words, the thought patterns, the thinking process, and then we're going to dive into the emotional component of the blocks. So what is preventing you from manifesting faster, sooner, more abundantly, in whatever other way that you choose to describe it, right? What's preventing this from happening has very little to do with how spiritual you think you are. In other words, I'm not trying to say that as like an offensive term as an attack, but the spiritual identity you've created for yourself, right? So your attachment to who you think you are in the realm of spirituality has very little to do with your spiritual practices, how much you identify with your spirituality, or how spiritual you think you are, and has more to do with the psychological blocks preventing the manifestations from coming to you, from you receiving them, or some kind of combination of the two. Okay? So in the field of transpersonal psychology, and if anybody is a fellow nerd and loves psychology and the human organism and all things learning about the human body and stuff like that, the mind, transpersonal psychology is a fucking fascinating field of psychology to study. But that aside, in the field of transpersonal psychology, a man by the name of John Wellwood came up with a term called spiritual bypassing in like the 1980s, I believe. And essentially, spiritual bypassing is when we use spiritual practices, spiritual beliefs, spirituality as a whole, to avoid facing our unresolved emotional issues, our emotional wounds, our psychological wounds, right? Or maybe avoid facing our unfinished developmental tasks, right? So the things that we need to do to feel like we have matured and for lack of a better phrase, are now grown up, right? So spiritual bypassing is when we use our spirituality to avoid the psychological work, avoid the inner work in here, so we can get all of these emotional and mental blocks out of the way so that we can receive, right? And we're going to dive into the mental and emotional blocks in just a moment here. So that will make a little bit more sense if it doesn't yet, so please bear with me for a moment. But I just wanted to offer, before we dive into those, just some signs that you may be using spiritual bypassing, which can be preventing you from receiving your manifestations. And just a few of them off the top of the head is like judgment and shame. So if you're judging yourself, or you judge a lot of other people, right? Or you shame yourself or shame other people, or you feel very internally critical, or you hear the inner critic chatting a lot in here, right? Just some signs, okay? Again, this isn't to judge anybody or to shame anybody with these insights. I just want to help you see what could be preventing you from manifesting and receiving what you deserve, right? So using spirituality as an escape, to come back to the signs, right? So using spirituality as an escape, right? When you feel like you need meditation, where you're attached and dependent on it, right? You need to pray. Like without these things, like you can't function, you can't go to bed, you can't go to work, or your day is gonna be like shit, right? Let's just think about this for a moment. Meditation is literally everything and anything. And I was talking to a friend some time ago, and she's a yoga teacher, and she was saying to me how they teach that in yoga teacher training school. I apologize if I said that wrong. She was saying how they teach that in yoga. Here we go. I'm gonna have to say it again. Teacher training school, and it's, in theory it makes sense, right? But in practice, it doesn't always seem that way. And the reason it could be because we have this idea that meditation is supposed to be where the mind is not thinking thoughts, right? Where you can just feel bliss and love and peace and joy, and that is not necessarily what meditation is either, right? Meditation is experiencing all of life, right? It is everything and anything. I love the way Dr. Joe Dispenza, he used to, I haven't listened to any of his work in a while, but in podcasts I listened to in the past with Joe Dispenza, he said that meditation means to know thyself. And that is such a beautiful way of phrasing this, because if we look at meditation through that lens for a moment, then we can see that meditation is everything. I am learning so much about myself just through recording this video right now. I learned something about myself when I wake up in the morning and I hear my thoughts first thing in the morning. When I take a cold shower and I hear how much I'm complaining. I learned so much about myself in every single moment. Like I told myself I was going to drink the water. Cheers, y'all. When I first started this video, and I forgot. And I'm so consumed with producing this video that I almost forgot to drink water. You know what I mean? And so I just learned something about myself. Like, okay, being productive is just as important as hydrating for some reason in my mind. But like, that's a thing. So it's like meditation is literally everything and anything. And so again, I'm not trying to attack anybody. I'm not trying to say, don't meditate, don't pray. What I'm saying is a sign of spiritual bypassing is when you have a dependency, a codependency, an over-dependency on meditation or prayer or spiritual practices, right? Another sign of spiritual bypassing can be avoiding negativity. Right? When we're high vibe, high energy, and we can't let our energy be brought down. Listen, y'all, negativity, negative emotions, negative energy is a part of life, right? We can do all the spiritual practices, we can do all the things to raise our vibration, and those are great. We need those, right? Those spiritual practices are helpful. We need physical practices in our lives to teach the subconscious mind what we're all about, right? That shit's important, and negativity is a part of life. We have to learn to work with negativity, embrace negative emotions, and alchemize them, not avoid and suppress them, right? Last thing I just want to say is confusing detachment or non-attachment is a better way to phrase it. Confusing non-attachment with disconnection. There's a difference between detachment or non-attachment and disconnecting from your emotions. And it's really easy to get lost in disconnecting from our emotions, from not being attached to them. On one hand, detaching from your emotions is experiencing them without becoming mentally identified with them. Disconnecting from them is suppression. Non-attachment, I'm just gonna say this one more time. Non-attachment is feeling your emotions and experiencing them, good, bad, right, or wrong, no matter how pleasant they are or unpleasant they are, without identifying with them, without resisting them, and without judging them. And disconnecting from them is suppressing them and avoiding them and pushing them aside. Okay, so now that we got the spiritual bypassing stuff out of the way, and maybe I helped you see that like there's, that's happening in here. Okay, cool. Now I see the sign. What is the sign supposed to point me to? Right, so we know that we see the signs. We know when we're doing spiritual bypassing. Again, no judgment. I do it sometimes too. It's not intentional. It's a byproduct sometimes of spiritual awakening, of healing, and all of the work we're doing, right? So then the question becomes, we have the signs. Okay, I see it. I'm noticing myself do that behavior. Now what? What is that behavior covering up? Because underneath the behavior is going to be the mental and emotional patterns, the blocks that are preventing the manifestation from coming to fruition, from materializing, from us receiving it. And so again, psychological blocks is the umbrella term, but we want to get into the mental and emotional side. At the root of them all is going to be the emotion, the energy, right? But the mental blocks can take us closer to the emotional ones, because sometimes we have to go through the mental to get to the emotional, and maybe even vice versa. So let's start with the mental blocks. And the first one I want to get to is limiting beliefs. Now, beliefs are thoughts that we continuously think, right? So things like, I don't deserve this, or I'm going to mess this up, or I will mess this up, right? So you're projecting worry and concern and anxiety onto the future through a thought pattern, a belief that you have about yourself. Now think about this through the lens of a creator for a moment. If God is watching you right now and keeps hearing you think thoughts like, I'll mess this up, I'm not good enough, why would he, she, it send you? Why would Source send you the things that you want when you believe you're going to mess them up? The energy you're putting out there. So you're like, okay, I want to lose 25 pounds, but I'm afraid I'll mess it up. So you're sending the desire out there. And then you're covering it up with, I think I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to mess this up. right? It starts with, I think I'll mess this up. And the more you think that thought, it becomes a belief where I know I will, right? So we have to hold space for the emotions underneath them. We have to listen, and that starts with listening to the beliefs and becoming familiar with our own thought patterns. Again, beliefs are thoughts we continuously think. So it's not just going to be a one-time thing where it's like, oh my God, like you might even be listening to this right now and you're like, holy shit, he just said what I've been thinking. Oh my God, that's a belief. I have a limiting belief right there. You're having this aha moment, right? Tomorrow it's going to come back. What do you do then? Do you get upset? Do you freak out? Do you get angry? Do you avoid your emotion? Or do you hold the space for that limiting belief again? Right? The more and more, like, again, if your work right now is to notice what's happening in your mind in thought pattern form, in limiting beliefs, then you have to hold the space for that limiting belief until the day comes where it's like, oh my God, I feel a fucking shame to myself. Or that belief is covering up all the guilt I've been holding onto. Right? Again, the mental patterns can lead to the emotional patterns and vice versa. But sometimes it works both ways. Sometimes we go right to the emotion and we just fucking release it all, and you have this massive breakthrough. It's like, whoa. And then all these beliefs come and they go away. And then sometimes we have to work with the mind, right? Work with our stories, work with our inner child to heal the beliefs, maybe rework them, rewire new thought patterns into the mind, and then get to the emotion underneath of it. So please do not discredit either one of these things. The next one is going to be like anxious or patterns of overthinking, right? These are going to be thought patterns, thought loops that we get caught in, where it's like you get triggered by something in the world, or fuck, maybe you trigger yourself, right? You have this pattern of worry. You start worrying about your health. You start worrying about all of your joints and your organs and whatever else. Your diabetes is flaring up again, like whatever your thing is, right? You start worrying about X, Y, Z. And then that worry leads to an indecision for you to go to the gym or for you to drink water. Cheers. And then the indecision becomes a decision where you don't do anything. And you're like, well, fuck, man, I suck. I'm not good enough. See, I told you I wasn't good enough. Like, and this is all happening in your mind, right? Anxious overthinking patterns. Fuck, I told you I wasn't good enough. Like, I didn't go to the gym again. And you start criticizing yourself. You start shaming yourself. Like, I really should have just like put the shoes on and go to the gym. You start beating yourself up, right? And then the shame, the inner critic, becomes the trigger to start the new pattern of worry. And then you're just caught in this fucking endless, what seems like an endless feedback loop. And I say it like that because just take a step back for a moment. Take a deep breath with me. If you feel that pattern sometimes, like just, I'm doing this for anxious 25-year-old Tyler here for a minute. And recognize that feedback loop feels very fucking real, and it feels like it won't end. But just take a deep breath and recognize that that's a feeling. That's not to diminish the feeling. That's not to undermine the anxiety or the overthinking. That is just to acknowledge it. It's just a feeling, and it feels fucking real. And now we can hold space for that pattern. Just use your breath and notice it. Get up, move your fucking body and notice it. I can't tell you how often going to the gym and working out gives me enough space, or just any type of movement, because sometimes it's just a walk, gives me enough space internally to just notice my thought patterns of anxiety and overthinking without doing anything with them. I used to be reactive to anxiety because I didn't want to feel that way. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to do something right now. And so I started just like, take a deep breath, go move my body, go for a 10-minute walk. And I'm like, okay, that's just an old pattern. I don't have to react anymore. And then the last mental pattern I'm gonna talk about is resistance. And this is really gonna show up in the form of things like shame, judgment, and guilt. Internal criticism, let me put it that way. It's probably a good way to phrase all of these. Internal criticism, right? So resistance is when you are fighting. You are mentally, right? Your ego, the mind, the intellect is fighting what you are experiencing right now. Right? Like let's just say someone just broke up with you, you know? and you feel really sad and down, but your mind kicks in. It's like, you shouldn't feel sad and down. You dodged a bullet. You got out of a shitty relationship. You know, your mind is, look, those thoughts are valid. Like, maybe that person sucked. Maybe you did get out of a shitty relationship, and that person was a part of your life. It's okay to feel sad. It's normal to feel sad. It's normal to grieve the part of you that is being released by that person leaving your life. And so the mind, the ego, the intellect will kick in, and with all of these fucking thought patterns, all of these patterns of resistance, right? Like I said, shame, guilt, criticism, judgment, and intellectualization can be resistance, where we resist what we're experiencing and feeling. And that's a really good segue to get into the emotional side of these things. So emotional blocks, again, all going to be driven by what we feel and or / do not feel, right? If you, and you know that, you know deep down if you do this, right? Because I hear in my mind right now, like people asking like, well, how do I know if I'm suppressing emotions, right? Suppressing your emotions is the base level of understanding that you know that emotional blocks are preventing you from manifesting, right? So deep down, you know if you're doing this, and you know when you're doing this. Let me even add that, because again, I've been doing this work for, I don't know, like half a decade now, maybe even a little bit more, and I still notice myself seep back into old patterns of suppression. I'm like, oh my God, that just fucking happened. Now it's fascinating. Now it's interesting. Now I actually laugh at it. Before, it wasn't the case. I'd be like, what the fuck, man? Why'd I do that again? You know, that's where the mind would kick in, and the resistance is like, man, I suck. I'm never going to be good at this. Like, I'm not even spiritual. What the fuck, man? You know what I mean? It's like all these patterns would kick back in, and it's just like, what the F? But it's just like, no, hold on. That's just an old pattern. The mind just, it found its old neurological hardware and it went down that pathway. Okay, move my body, you know? I do all kinds of weird and silly shit. Maybe one day we'll actually do a video where it's just like, I'm gonna do one of these educational videos and I'm gonna dance the entire time. If you wanna see that, drop a comment down below. That would be, oh my God, that would get me so out of my comfort zone. Maybe I should really do that. Anyway, I digress for now. So emotional blocks, let's get back into this. Emotional blocks. So, emotional blocks, and the way that they show up for us can be in the form of fear, unresolved fear, right? Like these fears that have been crippling you and hindering you for who knows how long. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's a fear of failure. So you don't take that chance. Like you stay at the job. You don't go to the gym because you don't want to even take the chance of fucking up on your weight loss journey. So you just stay small, you stay stagnant, you stay in what you have deemed normal because you are afraid of failing. Or maybe it's a fear of success. Maybe you know you can do it. And that's what scares the fucking shit out of you. You know, I mean, both of those speak to me. Like I had a fear of failure that I had to overcome, and I also had a fear of success I had to overcome in a lot of ways. Because like I am so fucking stubborn that I refuse to give up. And that knowing gave me a belief that I cannot be stopped. And that led to a fucking fear of success, believe it or not. Crazy. And that fear of success would keep me small sometimes. It's like I wouldn't actually be true and authentic to who I am because I had this fear of success, this fear of expansion. No, the ego is what's afraid of success. The ego is what's afraid of failure, because when we start to expand, we move beyond the ego. We move beyond the small self, right? We integrate the small self. We move from a space of integration with the small self, but it's no longer in control, and the ego does not like that. The ego loves control, right? And the last fear I just kind of want to hit on, because there's a million fears, like a fear of judgment, a fear of you know, onomatopoeia, I don't know. But the last one I want to talk about is a fear of change, right? A fear of change. Like what? Because the mind kicks in, the intellect. So what happens if I start to lose weight? Will this person still love me? Well, what happens if I lose weight and I have to buy all these new clothes? That's going to cost me so much money. You know what I mean? The mind kicks in with finding all of these fucking problems in the future, where it can then pull you back into smallness and keep you stuck because it's afraid of change. Change is good, y'all. We have to learn to embrace the unknown. The next emotional block I'm going to talk about is stored trauma, right? So trauma is like, I don't know how people take it, but before I got into the holistic wellness healing space online, I used to take trauma as like, it was this really heavy, dense word that kind of pierced my mind and carved a knife into my heart. For lack of a better way of phrasing it, it felt like it was like an attack on me every time I just heard the word. And I don't mean, if it comes across that way, y'all, I really don't mean for it to, for any of you. In other words, trauma really is unresolved, heightened emotional experiences from our past that we never fully resolved, we never fully processed, whether it happened in childhood, teenage years, adulthood, from relationships, from whatever, right? We never fully resolved it, we never fully processed it, and it becomes lodged within the body, right? So in other words, it is stored energy trapped in the body, because emotions are energy in motion, and if we don't fully cope with, we don't fully process, we don't fully resolve these emotions, they become lodged in the body. The energy gets stuck in certain areas. This can happen in physical form, like you get into a car accident, someone beats you up, you get in a fight when you're a kid, something like that. Childhood abuse, like whatever it is. I'm not trying to diminish any of those things, but they're all so fucking valid. Any one of those things you go through can be a block for you. It can block you from manifestation, because that energy is stuck in your body. And again, I'm not saying to suppress the emotions, I'm not saying to diminish them, I'm saying hold space for them. Give yourself unconditional permission to fucking feel that shit. Your body is the gateway to teach you what you are holding on to. I'm gonna say that one more time. Your body is the gateway to teach you what you're holding on to. You can learn all the information in the world about, you know, the root chakra is leading, like energy stuck in that area leads to this, that, and the other thing. And that can be a great insight into what you're holding on to. But that information can keep you stuck and limited and can create another mental block. Because then the intellect's going to use that information to prevent you from feeling the emotion. Because again, feeling the emotion is a pattern to block the manifestation. So what you do is you give yourself permission and you just sit there and get past all of the mental patterns until you feel the shame, the guilt, the sadness, the depression that you are holding on to inside of your body until it is released in some way, shape, or form. Maybe your body starts trembling, you start shaking uncontrollably. Like your body's going to do, I'm going to be real and raw with y'all. It's going to do some weird fucking shit when you actually release the emotion. Again, crying, like the things that people are familiar with, you might start hysterically crying. Laughter's a way of releasing emotions. There's so many different ways. So it's like, all of it to say though, stored trauma can block us from manifesting. Because again, the energy that you're putting out into the world is you're holding on to shame and guilt. You're holding on to sadness, right? Like you want to be 30 pounds lighter, but you're just like, yeah, but I'm ashamed of myself. I'm going to hold on to that. Because you're not letting it be released. You're not letting the energy move through you. So there's going to be times where you can release it, right? So don't take this information and start shaming yourself to not hold on to shame. There's times where you can release it, and then there's times to work with it. Feel that shame, right? And you're just like, you know what? Fuck this. And you just start, you bring it up. There's a beautiful graph. Look up, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Dr. David Hawkins' chart of consciousness, where he uses this chart of consciousness to show like our vibrational frequency based on the emotions that we experience. And the lower ones are going to be like shame, guilt, apathy, things of that sort, sadness. And once we get into like the level of courage, anger, desire, we can start to take those lower emotions, those lower energies, and convert them, and then use that newfound energy to alchemize it and produce the outcomes that we're looking for. And this is what manifestation, part of what manifestation is all about, guys. We're not just here to enjoy the beautiful, loving, amazing things in this world. That's true. And we're here to learn how to fucking alchemize all the negative energy and convert that shit into positivity and high vibes and joy and bliss. Right? We are here to learn how to be energetic alchemists. So, at one level, releasing the stored trauma is a part of it, and also learning to alchemize and use it. Hold the fucking space for the shame and the guilt, that sad, angry, scared child or teenager inside of your heart and mind. Let them feel their shit. And then when you are ready, and you will know because you will start to feel rage and anger. You will start to feel rage and anger for that scared little child. And you'll be like, you know what? I'm fucking done. You'll feel a newfound fire being forged within you. It's like, I'm going to take decisive action. I'm not taking no for an answer anymore. You will learn to alchemize that energy into something beautiful, and you will forge the courage inside of you to take the decisive action, whether it's go to the gym, take the job, or leave the relationship, whatever your thing is. Where you stop sitting on your ass waiting for the universe to align shit. The universe is giving you a sign. Take decisive action. I am speaking like this right now because I am tapping into that energy. Making videos like this used to be really fucking hard for me to muster up the courage and strength. And I still tap into it. Because there is a scared child inside of me who had a fear of judgment that everybody who watched my shit was going to judge me and think less of me because I didn't know what I was talking about. And I'm here right now as living fucking proof to say to you that you can convert that shame and guilt and fear, and you can fucking use it to create the life you want. You have to choose to be a co-creator. And it starts with recognizing and holding space for the stored trauma, the stored emotions, the stored stress. It's another way I kind of like to put it, because when you go to the gym and you work out, you are also traumatizing your body. That's why I say the word trauma, it might pierce your mind like it used to with me, but also little micro stressors also traumatize our body. So trauma can also be a very good thing when you intentionally use it and hold the space for your emotions, feel the depth of them, release what you need to release, and then whatever's left, you're just like, fuck, give me that shit. And you learn how to harness that negative energy and convert it. Like, come on. I'm so fucking pumped right now. And then the last one I want to talk about is attachment. Cheers, y'all. I am attached to being hydrated. Fuck yeah. Attachment. Attachment is an interesting one because psychologically speaking, attachment is like a fundamental process within the mind. So the question kind of becomes like, how do I honor the nature of the human brain? Like, we need connection. We need reliable connection, safe connection. And also, how do I not be attached? Because it's not the emotions themselves that are any problem. Feeling shame and guilt isn't what's blocking your manifestation. It's your attachment to the joy. You're more attached and identified with who you think you are when you're happy and who you are when you're sad. And both deserve to be honored and acknowledged. You are both of them. So you are overly identified with the beauty. Or maybe even you're overly identified with the negativity. Right? If you have a lot of limiting beliefs, you could be overly identified with the negative version of your small self, where you become engulfed in thought patterns of negativity, and that's who you think you are. And then your beliefs of I'm not good enough are always true. And the joy is just like, well, that's a fluke. That couldn't be real. That's not who I am. It works both ways. We can be overly attached or identified with negativity or positivity. And one way you can tell if you're attached to either side of the spectrum is a thought experiment. What happens if the thing you want so badly doesn't happen? What happens if you never lose the 30 pounds? What happens if you never find the partner? What happens if you never, what was the other one? What happens if you never receive the abundance that you're looking for, the financial abundance? What happens when those things don't unfold? If the mind starts resisting and fighting against that thought experiment, then you have an attachment to something, right? So you may even start to be able to to kind of connect some of the dots here and see that like attachment and resistance go hand in hand sometimes. If you're mentally attached, right? If your mind, your intellect, your ego are attached to a specific emotion, a specific story, a specific outcome, then you will resist. you will resist anything that is not that. And that resistance covers up the manifestation that you want. So like you have the desire, and it's like, no, okay, I need this. This is what I want. And this is exactly how it has to happen, right? So your attachment is causing resistance because it has to happen this way. But again, we talked about this earlier. Change is a very good thing. We need change. Humans are adaptable creatures. We need it. Right? So you're so attached to the manifestation itself that the resistance kicks in because you have to have it this way, and it blocks it from happening sooner. It doesn't mean you're not going to get it, but it just might mean it's going to fucking suck until you do because you're resisting everything. Resistance is not pleasant. Resistance blows sweet cheeks because we cannot control everything in life. We can only control what we have control over, what's happening inside of us. And if we start resisting everything that happens in the world that isn't what we want, then we are attached to an outcome that we have very little control over. That's why surrender is the key to all of this, really. And there are going to be different ways to get to surrender. There are going to be different times to get to releasing these things. Right? Surrender could be surrendering to the anger you have inside of you and taking decisive action. Right? It's not just, oh my God, I feel so much better. No. Surrender is everything. There's so many different vehicles for it. It could be a massive emotional release where you're just like, okay, I give up. Sometimes it's giving into the anger. You know, like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to kick some ass today. You know? So there's so many different ways to this. So I'm going to wrap up there, y'all. We dove really deep into this, and I really appreciate every single one of you who stuck around to the end here, who watched this in detail with me. I shared this in the last video. But, you know, kind of with me talking about this topic, it really does shine a light on a lot of these blocks for myself. I'm getting emotional as I'm about to say this right now. So I'm going to try to distract myself for a moment so I don't like start sobbing on camera here. But I got to look cool, all right? But, you know, like I've been able to overcome a lot of my fears and a lot of my own emotional blocks, mental blocks on my own journey here in all the ways that it took me. But even still, I find myself being fearful of being all of me. I still find myself being fearful of being all of me. And what that means, y'all, is like, I am a fucking nerd. I love all things wellness, right? And if anyone's been around long enough, then you know, like I'm talking mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, right? Like, and integrating these all together, mind, body, and soul, which is why I did this whole video about manifestation. When if you watched last week's video, I talked about circadian rhythm. It's like, wow, that is a hard-ass pivot. And it's not that even I just like talking about all these different areas of wellness. I love diving deep into them. I love nerding the fuck out. It is so much fun. And there's this thought pattern that kicks in that is like a limiting belief that I won't get the views, or I won't get the likes, or I won't get the metrics, I won't get MME members because my videos are too long and people don't want to. They don't have the time for this. They don't want to listen to all of this. They don't care. Just like give them what they want. You know, all these different limiting beliefs kick in. And ironically enough, like, it's not even that ironic because it's just the way the universe actually works. But like a week or two ago, I had someone comment on one of my personal Instagram page, or one of my personal social media accounts, and they said it was the captions were too long and they didn't read it. And it's so interesting how that person said that when I'm always thinking that people are thinking that. So it's like I've done all this work to overcome all these limiting beliefs and release this thing and that thing and alchemize and all these different things. And there's still so much work to be done. Because even as I'm sitting here explaining, wrapping this video up, I feel the fear that doesn't want me to, I feel the fear that leads to the thought patterns where I put myself back in a small box trying to condense the videos down into like 15, 20-minute clips so they're easier for people to find time to listen to. And it's like, you know what? Why the fuck am I gonna do that? To make myself small and keep myself small? That's not me. I'm a nerd. I love talking about this shit. And the truth is, there are so many, if people are really into it, there are so many ways that they can watch it in sections of 3. They'll come back to it when they're ready. You know, like, whatever it is. I'm done making myself small, and I want to invite you guys to do the same fucking thing. Face your fears head on. Stop spiritual bypassing. You know? Face the fears, the limiting beliefs, the unprocessed stored trauma in your body, and feel it all. And if you all need any help with that, that is what we're here for. You can drop a comment down below. If you have specifics that you'd like help on, if it's something personal you don't want to share, there's an email in the description down below. You can always reach out to us there. And if you're looking to work with me one-on-one as a wellness mentor, you can just shoot me an email down below. The email will be in the description. So thank you all so much for holding this space with and for me, to listen to me rant about myself, for diving deep with me into what blocks the manifestation process. And with any luck, this video has helped you remove the blocks to receive the abundance of manifestations that are flowing your way. Thank you all so much. I'll see you in the next video, and namaste.